Yo guys, we're looking at 5 essential texture tips inside of Blender Octane. Let's go. New to Blender Octane? Can't find learning materials? Down below, I got a link for the Blender Octane School. I'm building a community there to help fast track your learning of Blender Octane. Check the link down below. First tip, we're going to look at how to make random textures in Blender Octane. It's actually fairly simple. I'm going to jump in here. I got a cube, just a random cube inside of here. What I'm going to do is drop on a new material. If you go here and search, we're going to go to color and we should see it here. Random color texture. We're going to bring that out, and we're also going to need a gradient map. And there's our gradient map. We're going to go ahead and plug that into the albedo. And then I'm going to grab the texture output and put it into the input of the texture. Switch back over to the render here, fire up the render. All right, and we've got our standard default cube here, nothing looking special. What I'm going to do here is just click on here and just add a little bit of color. All right, so there is our cube. I've got this gradient map with some color in it and our random texture connected to the input. If we go ahead and alt duplicate this thing here, bada bing, bada boom, there it is. We do have some multiple colors happening. Again, it is using this gradient map to generate our separate different random colors. Now, another quick tip here, we can use this volume 1 and volume 2 to also get some really cool effects. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to quickly import 2 materials, grab an RGB image, bring that in here, and I'm just going to simply duplicate that. We have 2 RGB images. I'm going to quickly add in a texture. All right, I got 2 materials in here. Let's go ahead and fire up the render. I'll quickly show you what these materials look like. This is going to be my first material. It's just a concrete texture. And this will be my second material, which is just another different concrete texture. Now what we're going to do is get a random texture between mixing both of these. If I plug texture out into value 1, and if I plug this into value 2, make sure we go ahead and go back onto our universal material. Now, if I alt duplicate, we're getting a mixture. Actually, we should go ahead and reset that back to normal, back to default. There we go. Now we are getting a mixture of the 2 textures here. Just a really cool little way of randomizing. Again, if you're trying to make rocks or something, this will be a really good way to randomize that. And if you see what's happening, if I grab the gradient map here and I slide this over, now we're getting more of one material versus the other. This is the other material. And then if I slide this over, we're going to get more of the other material here. So super quick little tip that you guys might want to try out. All right, next I'm going to show you how to get a really cool accurate metal material. I'm first going to delete my universal material. I'm going to go Shift A. I'm going to go into materials and I'm going to bring in a metallic material. We're going to go ahead and plug that in. Now what we're going to do on this slider, if you look here, make this full screen, we have these IOR values, and right now they're set to artistic. Okay, what I'm going to do is switch this to RGB IOR. And that's going to allow us to use these here to get a really good accurate metal. Now, we don't know what the indexes for these colors are, but they are on the internet. And I'm going to show you a really cool website where you can get this information. So I found this really cool website. He actually has the RGB IOR values for common metals. If we scroll down here, there's our Suzanne head looking absolutely fantastic. But here is the list that we want here. We got aluminum, brass, copper, gold, iron, lead, mercury. Take a look at this list. It's very cool. So what we're going to do, we're just going to do gold. And we see here we got this N and this K. What we're going to do is take both of these numbers and input them into the node. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this top number here. Then I'm going to jump back over to Blender. I'm going to paste it right here in the top. And I'm just going to repeat this for all of the numbers. I'm going to go back and I'm going to grab the bottom one. We'll copy that. Then I'm going to do is jump back. We're going to paste that into the next one, enter, and then we're going to go do the same thing for green. We're going to jump back to green, copy it, back, paste it, enter, and the same thing, rinse, repeat. And the last one here, we'll take this, copy it, jump back, and then go ahead and paste that value in and hit OK. So now what we do is we jump back over to our render, fire up the render. Whoa, small break. We just had a small earthquake here in Japan where I'm sitting at my desk and everything's like, whoa, 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 whoa. But back to the video. There we go. Now we have our gold metal. So this is a lot more better way than trying to guess the colors on trying to make accurate materials, especially for metals. Quick little pro tip. If you take this BRDF model, it's set to Octane in the beginning. You could change this. I prefer to use GGX Energy Preserve, and then boom, makes a lot big difference here. Next, we're gonna look at displacement. Here I have this material that I brought in, and at the moment it does look pretty good, but we're just using the normals. We don't have any type of displacement put in it. Well, in Octane, it's really easy to set up. So what I'm gonna do here is quickly come down to this displacement tab. If you look here, let's go full screen. We have this displacement tab. If we click on this, and I don't have my plane subdivided at the moment, all I'm gonna do is bring in this texture displacement, bring this up. The material that I downloaded also has a displacement map, and on top of that, the displacement map is a EXR. If you ever have the option to take an EXR over the standard JPEG, take the EXR. It holds way more data, and you're gonna get better, cleaner displacement. So I'm gonna go ahead and plug that into the texture. The one I am using is a 2K material, so I'm gonna go ahead and set this to 2K. From there, our level is extremely low. Let's go back to the render, and we don't really see too much happening because our value is set really low. If I come in here and go 0.01, be easy with this. We don't need too much here. And you can see he's kind of beefed it up a little bit. Just to exaggerate, I'm gonna go 0.1. And now you can see there is our displacement. But take note here at the bottom is getting bitmapped. That means we're pushing it too much. We're pushing it a little bit too far, right? So again, like I said, you also keep it very generous here. I'm gonna go down to 0.0, maybe 2. And then another thing, you want to make sure you have your mid-level. Again, the mid-level is going to bring us back down, or is basically controlling the gray value, middle gray value, because displacement works off of black and white values, okay? So this is setting us back to our even level, right? So again, you can play with that. You can see it goes up and you can see it goes down here. I typically set it at 0.5. And then from there, we have this filter radius too. It says number of nearest pixels to use for filtering. The higher the value, the smoother the displacement map, okay? So I'm gonna crank this up to, let's say 8. All right, so that does smooth things out a little bit. So that looks a lot better. You know, here we got a little bit of displacement and it's actually happening here. You can see the displacement. If we go ahead and crank this up a little bit, boom, there it is. You can literally see the displacement happening. And again, on this, I have 0 subdivision. Check it out. I have not subdivided anything. So just another quick little tip that you can do with Blender Octane. Next, I'm going to convert a Cycles material to an Octane material. Here I went into Blender Kit and just downloaded this random pair of pants. So I got a pair of pants here. If we click on it, we jump over here, we can see the nodes that we have here, and we can clearly see they are all Cycles nodes. So what I typically like to do, especially when you have nodes like this, get them all lined up to see what you're working with here. We see we got a displacement. We also do have a normal, and it's good to check to make sure they are plugged in the appropriate slots, because this is really going to dictate if Octane is going to be able to convert it or not. So at the moment, normal is in the normal. That's good. Then we got 2 materials here. Looks like one might be an albedo and the other might be an AO. So they are being multiplied together into one material and they're plugged into the base. And then we do have a displacement here. Okay, so displacement is correct. So what I want to do is right now, Octane will not convert this correctly because of this multiply node here. So what we're going to do, just for the sake of this, what I typically do is I'm just going to plug this into the metallic, and then I'm going to go ahead and plug this straight into the base color. We don't need this. So if you have any external nodes that basically are just not image nodes, it's going to recognize these, but it's not going to recognize this multiply node. So I just disconnect it. So from here, what we're going to do is jump down, click on the material tab, scroll all the way to the bottom, and maybe collapse where it says converters. Click on that, convert to Octane material. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. It's going to ask me, do I want to only this selected material? If there's multiple materials, I prefer to do them one at a time to make sure there are no invalid nodes for Octane. So I'll say yes, only this one material, hit OK, and then we'll jump back over here. All right, so I noticed that we're missing the one texture here. So what I'm gonna do is just gonna jump back to the original here and just look. Oh, there is nothing plugged into the original, so they just had the displacement node there. So there's no biggie, we're not missing anything from there. So let's jump back over to the one that we just converted, and we don't need this texture displacement. We'll go ahead and delete that. Make sure this is plugged in the correct one. It's in the normals. And then we have here this grayscale, which was plugged into the metallic, but we need to convert these back, okay? So what we're gonna do is bring in a multiply node, multiply texture, connect it to the first one. I'm gonna pull this out of the metallic, put this back exactly how we had it. Now let's jump back over to the render, and boom, we have our pair of pants. But if we look closely, something might not be right. I think look how shiny our pants are. So I've had this issue when I'm downloading Quixel materials too. For some reason, if we come here that says coding, if you look here where it says coding, it's white. This should be set to black. Now we scroll this down to black. Now our pants should look correct. Now, one thing that we can get around this, another quick fix that I've also found here, let's go back to the material, the first one that we had. If we scroll back to the original, one thing I like to do, but sometimes it may shift up the settings, you can just click on this node and set it back to default by hitting backspace. Now, the downside of that, it did change the roughness value. If I do undo, you can see it had the roughness value and RI value and all that stuff. So just take note, if you don't hit backspace on us to reset this back to normal, you will need to do it once you convert your material back, because this coating should be black and it will be white. So just take note of that. Just make sure you take this and slide it down to black. The next tip I'm going to show you is another way that we can make adjustments to the size of, let's say, our ground plane. I have this ground plane here, and typically if I want to scale this ground plane, I will normally just come into here and add in some number values and then go ahead and fidget with that until I get the values that I want. Well, here's another way that you can possibly do it. Here I've added into the scene just a basic null. I'm going to click back on the material, and then from here I'm going to go ahead and delete this. I'm going to go shift, I'm going to go OBJ, object data node. I'm going to grab this, and then from here I'm going to plug this into the transform out and connect that right there to that guy. Then I'm going to go ahead and scroll this down, and I'm going to select the empty that I added in. Then next, what we're going to do is we're going to add in a box projection, and I'm going to throw this box projection onto my projection of all my nodes. Now you could try this with a different projection, but in this case I'm going to use a box projection. So once we have our null set here, if I go ahead and click on my null, if I go ahead and scroll down, now you can see I can use this null to make adjustments. We can also move it around. If you want to move it around, press X. It's just another quick and easy way to basically have access to the same data, but more visually. So maybe if I'm building my scene and I kind of just, instead of having to jump back and forth, I can quickly grab my null, just go ahead and scale this up. So just another quick way that you can do that. All right, guys, that's a little bit of some of the stuff that I've learned from my community. If you guys are interested in fast tracking your Blender learning Octane, take a look at the link down below. And also, for a treat for those who have stayed, I also will take a photo of all of these node setups, and I'll also have them in the link down below so you can download them and use it for reference later on how to do these quick setups. Catch you guys in the next one. Keep rendering. It's the only way you'll get better. Remember, Blender Octane, this is the way. Peace.